It's Dr. J, and welcome to a Breakfast with Dr. J. 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday. Hope you had a great week. And today we're going to talk a little bit about something that came up in a training session that I had last week. Last week we had a great day. We did a lot of last week we had a great week. We had implementation of lots of the skill sets that we've been working with in the Sales Authority Club, but also in some of our one-on-one clients. And one of the things I found was they were asking questions and going into the sale far too quickly. So I'm going to give you some ideas on what you can do to make sure that we use a process called permissioning to increase your sales. So when you pop on, please say hello in the chat box, say where you're from. And if I know you, I'll say g'day, because I'm on the computer, so it doesn't see the little thumbs on the hearts. But if you are on your phone, give a little bit of acknowledgement. That'd be terrific. Hey, Micheline, how you going? Great to see you. Sorry we couldn't see you yesterday at social, but we'll see you today. So thanks for joining me. So we'll wait for a few people to come on because it's a really interesting topic this morning. It's something that came up many, many years ago, and we had to create a process. And as we know, if we trust the process, you'll get the outcome. If we always think of the outcome and we say, oh, I wish I'd get more, or I'd do this better, what tends to happen is it becomes too much. And it's a big challenge when we actually don't follow a process. So when you pop on, say g'day, thanks for joining us. Hey, Danielle. So good to see everybody popping on this morning. And it is a beautiful day. I must say it's a sunny day here in Sydney. And I'm going to get permission from you to give you a little bit of insight on what to do with the process called permissioning. Hey, Big Sal, good to see you, my friend. Hope you had a great evening. Okay, topic for today is because we've had lots of people not knowing what they don't know. If you don't know what you don't know, then you'll keep doing what you do. If it's not working, you're going to get confused. The process I'd like you to write down today is called permissioning. Permissioning is something that is taken for granted, and we just get into the sale. Good morning, Tanya. Great to chat with you last week. And I would love to give you some ideas on how to reduce pushback and overwhelm in your sale. Many times we get into a presentation and we're excited about doing our presentation or helping that person as much as possible. And there's two things that go wrong. The first thing is we get on a roll and then we're talking and we're not asking a lot of questions. And then we're doing things that your prospect doesn't know why you're doing it. So when they don't know why you're doing something, people get, oh, why he or she doing that? And if we then go into a demonstration or an explanation or let's say a segue of what you're talking about, they lose track on where are we going. And when people get into this, oh, what's happening? They're not concentrating on what you're saying. A thing called fear pops up. And then as you progress through your presentation to get to, let's just say, your close, the person hasn't heard most of what you said. They haven't engaged with you much. And guess what? They don't make a decision. And a decision is only made when they feel as though that they have received, firstly, value, and you're a solution to their problem. One little thing I'll add to it though, the delivery of your presentation with your tonality makes an enormous difference. A little while ago, I did a presentation on the Sales Success Club about your tone. Your tone, when you talk to people, can either have an upward tone, where we're asking for things, and it sounds as though you're begging, because we're trying to be friendly, but a definitive tone, which actually has a downward tone at the end, gives authority. Authority, authority. Now, when you're asking permission, I want you to do it in an authoritative manner. Not a gruff or an aggressive manner, but in an authoritative manner. As you go into your conversation, You can go up, and then when you want them to ask them to get permission, you'll have a downward tone. So let me give an example. All right, John, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask you a few questions, upward tone, and then I'm going to write a few things down. Is that okay? It's a definitive tone. Is that okay? It's like, it puts you a little bit on the, how can we say, low confidence. Your tone depicts confidence. So if it's a downward tone, it's more of a, it's an upward, and then a downward tone would give you confidence. With upward and a downward tone, it gives you confidence. It's almost, it weakens the presentation. So what I want to do now is to go through some of the things that are some of the mistakes when we don't use permissioning. Listen to my tone and take note. One of the big mistakes, we go straight into the sale. The sale actually becomes a whole sea of words that you are delivering, and there's not a lot of listening. The time to ask questions and listen is at the front end of your presentation. The front end of your presentation allows you to then make sure that you create credibility, and also it gives you the information that you can then do your delivery with strength and competence for a solution. But if you get to that place where you're going to give a presentation and you don't have permission, then you're going to create an objection. Many people just go into this presentation and just go through their process and say, yes, I followed the process, doc, and I didn't get the sale. I said, well, hang on a tick, did you get permission to go to the next stage? And sometimes the answer is no. I would have just thought we would go there. Well, let me just give you a little bit of a heads up. It's a good idea to use permissioning just to make sure that you can move to the next stage. So if you've got a prompt for the telephone, you want to make sure that you say, hey, let me ask some questions, Hey, let me just write that down. Is that okay? Okay, I'm just going to write that down, all right? It's just that, all right? Okay. And then when there's that pregnant pause on the telephone, when there's a little bit of a, let's say, no chatting, it doesn't sound awkward. Okay, Tanya, let me just, I'm just going to write that down for a moment on the phone. All right. And now you're writing it down. But if I say, okay, Tanya, la, 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 gap, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with Steve? So on the phone, don't just go into your presentation. And if you're going to write things down, and it is important that you do write things down. Well, if you're going to type things, that's fine. It's better. I believe it's just easier just to get the trusty pen out and write it down. Just say, hey, I'm just going to take a few notes, okay? All right. Hang on a tick, Sal. I'll just write that down. Okay. So just make a little noise if you're on the telephone. The process we follow is tell them what you're going to do, then tell them, and then tell them what you've done. But as you go through and then you're going to tell them, say, well, would you like, let me, it's assumptive, let me give you a little bit of feedback on that. Is that all right? Yes. Is that all right? Okay with that? Is that all right? Are you okay with that? They'll go, yes. So you're getting them engaged instead of a sea of words from you. It's a small little thing. It's a small thing. Makes a massive difference. And the person feels that you're involving them in the conversation. Remember, selling is just a conversation with a decision at the end. Sometimes it's to fill in paperwork. Sometimes it's to meet you to go to the what's next activity. Remember, we always need to work with a what's next mentality. When we go through the processes, it's what's next. And when we've finished a phone call or a demonstration, it's what's next. It's delivery of the product or it's the follow-up of the paperwork. It's always what's next. And when you have the what's next, get permission for the what's next. It could be a follow-up. A lot of people follow up people. They say they got to think about it, shop around. They don't overcome the objection. And then they just ring them up willy-nilly as follow-up. Well, what do they think you're going to call for? Yeah, to sell them something. They probably avoid the call. But if you don't make a sale or you don't book the appointment, said, all right, terrific. Well, look, you need to do this. I know you're going away for a little bit. Would it be what I'd like to do, or what I'll do is to give you a quick call. Now, would it be better on Tuesday or Wednesday? All right. And I'll also have a little bit of extra information about that topic. Okay? All right, 6 o'clock. That'll be terrific. All right. Never ring up just for a follow-up. I'll just ring up and follow you up. Always ring up with additional information. But always get permission. Now, the next thing I want to cover is when you're online, if you're doing a Zoom, a presentation, and you're going to get some information from somebody, what I need you to do is they say, let me ask some questions. Is that okay, Bob? And then I'm going to give you some, some feedback. I'm going to take a few notes. Okay, so I'll just write a few things down. Is that all right? Okay. And then you'll just start. And then when you start looking away from the camera, it doesn't look like you're rude. You say, look, I'm just going to take a few notes. Oh, hang on a tick. Let me just write that down. And then you write it down. Don't try and write it down peripherally. It doesn't work that way. It's like, oh, I'm trying to write that down, and all of a sudden the person's talking away and you're not looking at them in the camera. Well, guess what? You look like you could be texting or writing your shopping list. Little thing makes a big difference, especially online when you're looking at that camera. Oh, that's interesting, Tanya. Let me just write that down for a tick. Let me just write a few notes about that. Now, once we get into this practice, don't have to do it all the time, but then you just tell them at the beginning and then you just do it. Permissioning. Now, the next thing I want to cover here is that overwhelm will shut people down. If you get into overwhelm, when you get into all of your stuff and you don't stop, you say, hang on a tick, let me, it's assumptive, let me ask you just a couple quick questions and recap. Is that all right? Permissioning. And then when they've told you stuff, you stop and then you engage and you feed it back. By feeding it back and confirming that what they told you has gone in here and you have listened, that increases engagement significantly. Many people don't do this. And by the way, many people actually think their memory is going to be terrific and they don't write anything down. The reason they don't write anything down is because they think their memory is unbelievably infallible. Well, let me promise you, it's fallible. Going to take a few notes. Okay, I'll just start now. All right. When you've done a few things, when you've taken a few notes, you say, okay, Mary, let me just recap that for you. Is that okay? All right. Room. Isn't that simple? Isn't that simple? Doing it on the phone or on your Zoom or even belly to belly makes an enormous difference. When you're present and you're talking to someone and you go away from eye contact, just say, I'm just going to take a few notes now. Is that all right? Okay, terrific. All right, so what you've told me is this. No, don't, please write this down. Please don't say, oh, so what you're trying to say is this. I've heard that many times. Oh, so what you're really saying is this. No, tell them what they said and say, what does that mean? What you're really saying is this, Steve. Is that right? And I go, no, it's not. Breaks rapport. We're not the same. Okay, so this is what you've said. Is that right? Okay. Could you explain that a little bit more? What does that mean? Permission. Ask that question. Okay, let me just feed it back. Okay, is that right? Get a recap. Ask confirm. If it's not right, they'll tell you. Isn't that better to do than actually making the mistake and having a big rock missing? And by the time we get to our demonstration or explanation, when you are in control, you haven't got the right info. So you're now steering them in the wrong direction. So it's not a fit. They get an objection. They got follow-up. Oh, we don't want that, do we? Hi, Alan. How are you? Good. Hey, good to see you, mate. All the way from Canada. Thanks for joining me. So give us some thumbs up if this is resonating with you, because so many people don't do this exercise. It's such a small thing, makes a big difference. And when we get permission and then give a feedback, feed it back and confirm, it means that we are in a position where when we present our outcome, which is let's go to what's next or to buy a product or service, it's a flow and it becomes unstilted. So asking permission Giving feedback and then confirming what's right is a great skill to actually make sure that the person firstly knows you're listening and you're on point. Because we all know the number one motivator of human behavior is to avoid a pain. If we don't have enough rapport or have the person feel that you're listening and not thinking that you're just not engaged with them by getting permission, guess what? If it's a big rock item, it's a big deal for the person to make the decision, they're not going to feel comfortable. And remember, we can only move at the speed of trust. So these are things that you can do online, especially online, guys, because when you're doing a Zoom and when you're doing something for somebody, you've got to look in that camera. And if you're going to look away from the camera, you are not engaged. Now, remember, when you're looking at the camera, you can't see them, but you're watching them in peripherally. Now, the next thing is that process I just spoke to you about recapping is after you've actually got the permission to get the information. When you recap, make sure that you recap in brief. Do not over talk. The other day I was actually going through someone was selling to me, and they did a nice recap, but it was overkill. They're just going to get bullet points and then get confirmation and move on. Remember, I've already said it. Recap it, make sure you confirm, and then move on. Please do not overkill. And remember, that tone, if it's always upwards, it's almost like you're being, let's say, weak, but you make sure you go up and then down. Is that right? Are we on the same page? Terrific. See, downward tone at the end. Again, online and on the telephone makes a big difference, and also belly to belly. All right. Now, the wrap up on what we want to do here is how does this help in closing? Now, in our training, we actually have a process called transition. Actually, in our quarterly, we did the training in it. In our role play, fun play in the Sales Authority Club, we're going to be doing some practice on it. We find that PDR, that practice, drill, rehearse, makes an enormous difference. It is a process that allows us to get permission to present prices. You know, a lot of people will present the product, they will not test close, and then go straight into a asking, decision-making close without permission. No wonder we don't get the outcome. Whether they're buying something for $150 or if it's $1,000 or if it's $20,000. Hey, just get permission. Test the buying temperature. Make sure that you're on point. You're fixing a big problem so you can get the big bucks. Just asking a simple permission. There's two different ways that we teach this. One is called inside the bubble. There's a test close, and there's outside the bubble. The 4 questions that we teach in transition are outside the bubble. They're very easy to remember. Once we do that, the very last question is, so given that's all okay, and you can see this is all working, would you like me to show you how to proceed to whatever's next? How to start treatment, how to make sure you have financial freedom, and always not say get started and stop, very old school, to get started with what? With what? Having the treatment so you can, what is the so you can? So let me show you how we can get started to start the whatever it is so you can. Write that down, please. Would you like me? Okay, give that's all okay. Would you like me to show you how to get started so you can have a feeling? Everyone will agree to have a feeling. They might not want to get started to buy your product. The product is by the way. They're buying the feeling. Remember that. So in summary, what I wanted you to think about today is, how often do I ask permission? Do I set the scene right at the very beginning? Because if we don't ask permission to go to the next stage, some people think you're not engaged with them. So the first thing is, we want to make sure that you don't go straight into the sale. Tell them what you're going to do. And as you're going through the process on the telephones, tell them you're going to take a few notes. Is that okay? All right, don't just say, I'm going to take some notes and just do it. Just, is that okay? Okay. Or you could be assumptive. Okay. All right. Remember that. The next thing we talked about is if you're going to do something online, make sure that if you're looking into that camera, you're going to take some notes. You go, there we go, and then come back. You say, let me just take a few notes, and we're good to go. And then we want to then reduce overwhelm. Don't keep talking. As you go through, and you go through a good conversation and feed it back, recap it. Look, Steve, I just took a few notes here. Okay, I'd just like to feed that back. Is that okay? Terrific. Feed it back. Break it up in chunks. Firstly, make sure that they are engaged. Secondly, that proves that you've listened. Now, that recapping modality allows you to go to the next stage. And then the wrap up for today is to say, well, how do we actually get the position where we can ask for the decision or the what's next? So what we do here is we just go into a process of testing the temperature. As I said, it's a very simple process called transition, but the very last question is a permission question. After you've done everything, it's just done magnificently. You can see yourself doing this. It's really convenient, all that stuff. Would you like me to show you how to get started to have whatever they're going to do and have a feeling? They go, yep, off you go. And then you just do your prize presentation, which should be sequenced and it should be, non-complicated and easy to understand. So, getting permission makes an enormous difference. It's a small thing, makes a big difference. So we get permission, we do recap and confirm. So the takeaway from today is making sure that you don't go into motor mouth. Go through and listen. Ask permission to do things. And then recap and confirm. So I'd love you to put something into practice. Make sure you took some notes today, because if you put this into practice, it's just a simple little thing. Remember, ask permission. In other words, tell them what you're going to do and say, is that okay? Make sure that you try to reduce the overwhelm, to stop and recap. And then actually then you will confirm. And before you present prices, make sure everything is all good, and then you'll ask permission, not to get started to do something, to have a feeling. So, not hard, hey. Implementation is key, but repetition is the mother of learning. So practice a few of these things. That, as we say in the Sales Authority Club, PDR is critical. Most of our members now are doing it daily, and they're getting great results. All right, now before we wrap up, I always like to have a sip of my cup of coffee with breakfast with Dr. J. As I keep telling you, I make a great cuppa. Before I wrap it up, I always like to give you an opportunity to ask some questions. Now, whether it's about permissioning or recapping and so forth, up to you, doesn't matter. If you've got a question, just pop it into the comments, and it doesn't have to be on topic. It could be completely left field, and you might have a question that other people might not have asked. They might want to say, well, I would like to have asked that question, but I didn't. So there's a little bit of a delay, so I'll just wait a few moments before I wrap it up for this morning. If you've got a question, oh, David Hurst, my goodness, we've got people from Canada, Melbourne, Brisbane, and also France. Thanks, David. Thanks for joining me, mate. Hope things are going great. I'm sure things are going terrific. You can watch the replay a little bit later, my friend. So I give my love to Christoph and everybody, and Dominique and Bruno. Oh, gee whiz, those days were just like yesterday. Thanks for joining me, mate, and I see you doing some wonderful stuff with some of your personal training crews. So congratulations. All right, gang. What is PDR? Practice, drill, rehearse. It's another name for role play, which people don't like role play, do they? But they'll happily practice, drill, and rehearse. Remember the 6+3+1 model, which we taught you many years ago? Terrific, mate. All right, gang. How often would you recap in a presentation? Very good question, Micheline. As you go through these steps, so let's say, for instance, in your 4Ws, right? And you've got rapport. You wouldn't do lots of recapping in rapport, but in your 4Ws, what are your number 1, number 2, number 3? Okay, we can certainly do that. Let's come back to number 1, and that was your number 1 priority. Is that right? Yeah. Confirm. Let me teach you something. Would you like to know a little bit something you might not know? There we go. Off you go. Just when you're going to give something profound, don't overkill it. 2 or 3 times per permission will give you the opportunity to have engaged, especially when you're online. Not in a webinar though, Micheline. We were doing webinar training the other day. No, you just go for it. Question time is in the corridor or later on. Okay, that's great role play. French is a very bad. Most people are very bad with it, David. They don't like it because it's not fun. We have a little thing in our sales authority card. We call it a role play, but it's fun play, and we call it PDR. Our little community calls it PDR because, and when they start doing it, they get the results. And when you get a result, you'll always keep doing it, mate. Terrific. All right. Hey there, Chris. How you going? Lovely. Okay. This would be good for you to share with the team. Terrific. Well, share as much as you want, guys. Share it to all of your crew. I pop on here every Saturday. We're going to have lots of little things. Got a couple of surprises in the Sales Success Club over the next 3 or 4 weeks. So watch out for them. So good questions. If you've got any more, keep them coming. I'll just have another sip of my cuppa. Good. Great questions today, guys. Good questions, Micheline. All right, gang. Well, I hope that you found it useful. But you know what? The stuff I give you and the little tips to put into practice are really great if you understand it now, but it's what you do. Doing is everything. That's why PDR, David, is so important. You can train till the cows come home, but if you don't do, you're not going to get any better. It's like personal training, which you are a specialist in. If people don't do it regularly, or if they don't eat properly regularly, they're not going to get a result. Practice, drill, rehearse. It's just like a doing. A doing is a learning. Just the repetition is the mother of learning and skill. All right, gang. Well, it's a wonderful day here in Sydney. I hope it's wonderful over in Canada and also in France and everywhere else where all my friends are. So thanks so much for joining me this morning. It's always good to see you. Every Saturday at 7:30 a.m. Australian Eastern Time. All right, gang. Hope you have a fantastic week, and let's kick some goals. Tanya, hope you have some big rocks out there with your opportunities we spoke about last week. How exciting will that be? And maybe I think we're going to chat on Wednesday or Thursday next week and see what we can do. All right. All right, gang. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.